Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Comic Corner, where we do news, reviews, and interviews. I am your host, Fat Thor, and today we have a very special interview for you all. We are talking all about Kool Keith, the crossover of the Flower KOSMIC from Z2 Comics. And to do that, I am joined by two very special guests. We are joined by friend of the show, Sean Von Gorman, who you may know from my favorite comic book, The Pedestrian. Sean, welcome back to the show. Thanks for joining us today.
It's great to be back.
It's always great to have you, man. Every time we get to chat it up, it's always one of my favorite times. But we are also joined by another very special guest. You may know him as Esoteric, writer of many, many amazing albums from the supergroup Czarface, alongside Inspector Deck and producer 7L, as well as the writer of Kool Keith and the crossover of the Flower KOSMIC. Eso, thank you so much for joining us today. How you doing?
I'm well, man. I'm well. Thank you for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Of course, I've been a big fan for a long time. I had the great opportunity to meet you very, very briefly at Comic-Con. So glad we were actually able to get this going and get you on for an interview. And before we get started on Kool Keith, I have to mention very quickly a huge, huge congratulations and shout out to Sean and his partner in crime, Joey Esposito, on getting an Eisner nomination for The Pedestrian. So really quickly, Sean, I got to ask you just how awesome and vindicating was that moment? Because we talked a lot about the kind of long road it took for The Pedestrian to kind of see the light of day.
It took a long time for it to sink in, because it's something that, they just tell you it's happening. We got a little bit of a heads up. And then there's like a 3-week eligibility window to vote. So we had to kind of run and just get the word out in a very annoying way, because we were definitely the underdogs in that category. We're going up against Absolute Batman, Absolute Wonder Woman, and a Jeff Lemire book. And it was very humbling to be in that room at the Eisners at San Diego with the Eisner nomination, and the recognition is huge for this very indie book to be up there with all these top dogs at the biggest show of the year, for sure. And then we're also equally, as of this morning, we're also up for a Ringo for Best Series. So we're going to start the whole process again, and we're looking forward to Baltimore this year.
I love it, dude. I can't think of two dudes who are more deserving, or a book that's more deserving, win or lose. It's just amazing to see that recognition. And Eso, throwing it off to you, speaking on The Pedestrian, I saw you posting when you picked up The Pedestrian. I'm guessing that's kind of how Sean got on your radar. So what was it about The Pedestrian that really caught your eye and also made you think that Sean was the right man for this Kool Keith project?
Well, I love the unorthodox nature of The Pedestrian and how he's positioned as a character, against every other character in the whole realm of comics, the universe of comics. He's a very unique and compelling guy, and connecting with Sean made a lot of sense. I think we linked through Z2, and we hit it off right away to talk about this project, and we started talking about Czarface, and he showed me a few sketches that he did of Czarface, and I loved his rendition of him. And I, based on the way he can tell a story visually, it was really easy for me to kind of write a script, put it in his hands, and have him help mold it and shape it, and really help tell the story visually.
Well, I think you guys absolutely nailed it. You definitely can see, being a fan of both of you guys, I can definitely see the collaboration between you two, especially with the writing and how that translates into the art with Sean's style. So I think that you guys nailed the collaboration. Absolutely. And so sticking with you for a quick second, since it's your first time on the show, we usually like to do sort of a comic book origin story type of thing. So we'll try to make this quick so we can hit on to Kool Keith. But grew up in Boston, obviously with a love of comic books, and which led into your creativity into rhyming. That led you into DJing a show on a college radio station, which caught the attention of producer 7L and started your guys' legendary partnership. Had some projects, The Sole Purpose, Bars of Death, one of my favorites, A New Dope, and also your time in Army of Pharaohs with Vinnie Paz. And all this kind of came all together in 2013 when you and L linked up with Inspector Deck from Wu-Tang to form the super group Czarface. Now, most of your guys' most of your guys' verses, especially Deck and you, revolve around nerd culture and comic books. And I mean, going so far as your Secret War single from one of your guys' first records together. So, growing up with all these comics and this nerd culture, how do you think that that kind of influenced your creativity into writing rhymes and then eventually culminating in the Czarface character?
I feel like hip hop and comics have a lot of similarities, you know, in terms of the outlandish, cartoonish ways you're projecting your powers. There's really no rules when you have a pen in your hand, and you know, the only rule is don't steal someone else's style, you know. And I feel like growing up reading everything from X-Men to Iron Man to Swamp Thing to, I don't know, Crisis on Infinite Earths. There's so many different stories that I grew up reading that probably helped expand my vocabulary and made it a lot easier to play with words because I was trying to understand what telekinesis was so I could understand, you know, a Chris Claremont book or something. And I think playing with words is fun, and when you can make them rhyme over a beat and put some attitude behind it, it makes it a little easier to get up in the morning every day.
Absolutely. And obviously, like we just said, you're no stranger to writing stories and, you know, adding in punchlines and references. So, how does that, when you decided to start writing comics? So, you've written a couple comics before, namely A Czar is Born, telling the origin of Czarface. But also, this surprised me actually. I didn't know this, but also a X-Men holiday special for Marvel. So, when you were doing these projects, how did the experience from writing songs translate into writing comics? Like, what's the difference between writing a verse versus writing a word bubble?
I think it's a lot harder to write a word bubble for me in narrator captions and trying to make dialogue seem natural, trying to tell a story without being so on the nose, and I it's every time it's a learning experience, and I'm second guessing myself every time, but I consider myself very lucky to have a chance to do it. I was very lucky that Marvel gave me a shot with the X-Men story, and here we are. I feel like with rhyming, there's a lot of, you know, style you can put on things, and the way you say things, and the way, and with the written word, you really you need that visual component too. So I think a lot of the times when, you know, I'm writing dialogue, it's a lot easier to refine it once I see the art. You know what I mean? If Sean draws a picture of Czarface winking while he's breaking somebody's neck, I might want to change the dialogue to be a little bit more snarky than maybe I had written it before. So you get a lot of back and forth, which is fun. And there's nothing more rewarding than writing a script and then seeing the artist's interpretation of that and seeing it come to life right before your eyes. I mean, that's more rewarding than making hip hop records to me, really, just to see that finished product. It's just, wow.
Yeah, I'm sure. And I mean, that goes into a lot of your guys' work with Czarface. You guys released a lot of short little stories and comics to collaborate with the albums itself. And I think that's just one of the things that really makes you guys stand out. Obviously, what made me really gravitate to you guys. And I mean, but let's get into Kool Keith, man. That's what we're here to talk about. I got to say, before we get into this, I loved this book. Being a big fan of hip hop and also obviously comic books, this just hit the right nerve for me in all different ways. It's like golden age of hip hop mixed with silver age comic, like goofiness, adventure. It's just so awesome. So for those out there who don't know, Kool Keith is one of the most legendary MCs of all time, probably influenced your favorite rapper style and flow, was originally part of the Ultra Magnetic MCs and then went on to be one of the most influential solo artists with his creative style, and also his many, many alter egos, including Dr. Octagon, Black Elvis, Dr. Doom. I mean, we could spend all day just going over the alters. And this comic book, Kool Keith, Crossover to Flower Cosmic, it follows Keith coming together with all of his different variants to battle the evil scientist, Dr. Gerbic. And I mean, if that doesn't sell you on the comic book in itself, I don't know what will. But Sean, starting off with you. So you mentioned in our last talk when we kind of talked about this like months ago, you said that you kind of learned a lot about Keith during this process. You weren't as familiar with him when you started. And through some of my research and going through his catalog, I feel like you guys share a lot of the same kind of influence. He talks a lot about the space show, Star Trek, creature features being a big influence for him. And I mean, I know that you are a big Trekkie making fan films. So as you were learning more about Keith and going through his work, did you kind of feel a familiarity with it at its face before even kind of really diving deep into it?
Yeah, I mean, I did a significant dive when Esso, you okay?
Oh my God. Sorry, I'm giving you time to formulate your answer. I figured I'd throw in a little hijink there and let you really.
Yeah, no, yeah. This, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think this project kind of came up before Pedestrian got picked up. I was talking to Z2. Like every New Year, I'll send out like my hey, Happy New Year. Got any projects for me? And they were like, yeah, would you be up for doing this thing we're doing with Kool Keith and Esoteric from Czarface? I was like, cool, yeah, I'm down. I think the original plan was to have me do like have each artist have multiple artists do like 20 pages and to get like different art styles going on, and then just starting Google searches and listening to their stuff. I was fairly aware of Czarface, like through the overlap with comics. Like I'd seen Z2 have the book out. I was aware of their albums. I'd never heard of Kool Keith before this. So just jumping into this, I think the thing I really appreciated was how Keith has fought for so long to remain an independent artist, to have creative control over his work through his very long career. And seeing, I think my in visually was the Bushman video where it's Keith in a wig, just out in the woods running around with a very low budget. I was like, oh, this is what it's gonna look like. It doesn't matter that we don't have a lot of money to do this. It's the enthusiasm and the dedication to this. It's gonna be Keith in different wigs, and it's gonna be like Avengers Endgame on a budget. And when I sent back my samples to Z2, they're like, oh, do you just want to do the whole book? And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And we were off to the races.
That's freaking awesome. Talk about landing a job, right? You impressed them so much, you got the whole damn book. And Esso, for you, obviously, Magnetic MCs and Keith are a major influence in your work. You mentioned them many times in a lot of your songs. And I mean, even the creation of Czarface kind of closely parallels Dr. Octagon, with Keith, Cutmaster Kirk, and DJ Cuber kind of coming together to make that character. So one, I mean, can you just kind of dive a little bit more into how Keith inspired, your own style? And also, where did the idea of writing an entire comic book about him come from?
Sure, yeah. Well, Keith has always been an influence because of the way that he has just a lawless approach to emceeing. It doesn't matter if everything rhymes in a 4/4 measure. It doesn't matter what direction. it's the entertainment that he's bringing with his vocabulary, his wild visual imagination, the way he can pull ideas just out of thin air, things you would never think about, and then put it in a comedic context, which might not even be intentionally comedic, but it's so rewarding when you listen to it, because there's no one else that raps like him, and if there is, they're pretending to be him. So he's a real pioneer, and did not play by the rules. Never played by the rules. He made his own rules, and continues to. So I found that very inspiring, because a lot of hip hop that I grew up listening to, including Ultramagnetic MCs and Kool Keith, most of it could be considered very traditional. And Keith was anything but traditional. So I found a lot of value in the stuff that he makes, and still do to this day. So I felt like with Z2's platform, where they put out a lot of books that featured iconic bands, singers, soloists, whatever the case may be, there's so many titles they have. I think Josh from Z2 and myself in conversation, who is also a big Kool Keith fan, he might have pitched the idea to me, or he might have told me they wanted to do a Kool Keith book. And I said, oh shit, let me write that. And I kind of said it jokingly. And but he was like, you want to write it? I think you'd be good to write it. Because of probably, some of my background with Keith, relationship with Keith and so forth. And it was really that simple of a conversation. And then all of a sudden, I have this task of writing a Kool Keith graphic novel and incorporating all of his very colorful personas into it. And we could ride the wave of all of the madness of the multiverse in all different branches of comics. And Kool Keith has his own multiverse, which features all of these crazy characters, from Bushman to Black Elvis to Rhythm X to half shark, half alligator, half man, or half shark, alligator, half man. There's so many. So it was really an infinite well to dip my pen into.
I mean, it seems like it just kind of combines all of your favorite things together. And I love hearing both sides of this story, because it really feels like this was like the comic gods working in the background, bringing this all together. And again, I think the end product speaks for itself. And Sean, one thing I really love about this book, again, being a fan of your work, is I feel like I can really see the kind of progression here from the pedestrian into something like this, which are very kind of tonally different. And you did this a little bit in the pedestrian with like the kind of godlike beings that we get a little glimpse of, but we get a lot more action here, a lot more kind of classic comic book kind of fighting stuff. And a lot of these things, obviously Czarface and Kool Keith being a real person, these are kind of existing designs. So did that kind of change your approach at all when working on this, to take the design of Czarface, designed by Lord Supreme, and make it your own while still staying true to these concepts and obviously how Keith looks in real life?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there have been many artists who have contributed art to the Czarface property, and I love the design. At the time, Super 7 Ultimates had put out a Czarface action figure, which I picked up, just have as like a visual reference, because it's a great design, but it's a complicated look. There's lots of like different shapes and different things there. Yeah, no, like there's where is it? I got it over here, I think. Yeah, here we go. So I like to whenever I can, if there's like a toy or something that exists of a property, I grab this guy during the making of it. And this was a lifesaver in terms of having as reference material, because it's such a complex design that's got a bunch of like textures and horns, and just the actual helmet itself from different angles was helpful to have, which was a lot of fun to play in that sandbox. But then with Keith, there's not a lot that exists visually of the personas other than Keith presenting himself on stage in different things. There's like liner art, there's like covers of some things. But there's not much more than that. So I kind of wanted to start with that as a jumping off point and then sort of expand on it, especially with, you know, characters like Dr. Octagon, sort of maybe seeing like a time progression from maybe the last time we've seen him. He's died, he's come back to life, probably more than once at this point, and just trying to do something that would, you know, be instantly recognizable, but also lend itself to the comic format. Like Black Elvis has a costume change halfway through the story that I wanted to make a reference to Captain Marvel from Elvis Presley's love of Captain Marvel Jr. I wanted to do maybe like a hint to that for the second version of Black Elvis that would also have a similar affectation to sort of the original Captain Marvel Shazam dynamic. That's why he kind of has like that cape and he shoots lightning towards that. But it was, yeah, a lot of this was kind of designing on the page on the go. I didn't want to overthink anything because a lot of this was, my idea was just to come in. This would be Keith, different versions of Keith assembling these looks very quickly with not a lot of time. So like maybe he grabs a wig, he grabs a new outfit. This is me. Let's go.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, it just flows so well together again with the writing. I also want to shout out really quickly Josh Jensen, who does the colors, and letters by Adam Wallet. I mean, both the colors with your art just pop off the page. It's so good. And that Esso, in the back of the book, speaking on Keith's alternates, you give a quote saying that he has around 500, which, I mean, sounds insane. I tried looking up as many as I could. I think I found around 60. But, I mean, you actually know the man. So when coming up with this book and, you know, going through the alters, did you have any discussions with Keith about which ones you wanted to include and, you know, how to even approach all of these different versions of Keith?
Yeah, I did. I spoke with him about the book for what felt to be about 90 minutes or so, just over the phone. But I was driving. I was like I am now. I was in my car, and my son was with me. My son was next to me, and I was talking to Keith on speakerphone. So it was a very fun conversation because the path Keith will take you on conversationally has many winding roads. And they're very, very colorful and entertaining every step of the way.
Yeah.
So as we discussed which characters to use, I had this idea that this might be very entertaining to my son too, just to listen. You know, this guy's Kool Keith. He's one of these hip hop icons, and hearing Keith kind of pontificate about everything to do with the comic book world. I mean, one of his earlier records from the 90s, in this group he was in called the Cenobites, he had this line. He said something, I like ice cream, kids. I like Carvel. I read comics and books. Yeah, Marvel. And that right there was one of those lines that just kind of landed so well. It gave every hip hop kid a pass to really dig into comics too, and really marry the two. And there's no, you know, when there's so much like machismo around being an MC, and you got to be tough and have this tough face on all the time. Keith showed that you didn't have to do that, you know. So I thought it was great to have this conversation and go through his different personas. But he would kind of go off on things. He's like, yeah, but I want like a cheetah, but a cheetah with like a monkey's body and like a lizard tail. And as he says it, I can tell that it's not life or death to him. He's kind of just throwing out some suggestions, and I don't know if he would hold on to that if the story changed, because he was inventing new characters as we were speaking.
Yeah.
And I had said to him how I wanted to incorporate half shark, half alligator, half man. I always mispronounce it, because it's half shark, alligator, half man.
Yeah,
I wanted to incorporate
alligator.
him. Yeah, into the book. And he wanted to do that as well, but he went on this thing about how he thinks that DC stole King Shark from him.
I mean, hey, the evidence is there.
Well, yeah. Listen, I love Keith, but my son, he's like a comic savant, so he's saying this over the phone to me. He's like, yeah, I think DC took that from me, you know, because King Shark, it looks a lot like half shark, half alligator, and I'm listening, and I'm like, yeah, possibly. And my son Xavier, he's next to me, he's shaking his head. He's like, no, couldn't happen.
He's like, impossible.
Yeah. And I think King Shark was created in 94, and I think that half shark alligator, that Dr. Octagon record might have came out in 96. So it's a close enough window where you could think that, but you know, I think it's so tough to come up with a original character as time goes on and on and on and on. Ideas are coming left and right from everybody, you know. That's what makes the Pedestrian so cool, because he's an original guy, you know, and you can have a 500 different versions of Iron Man and 500 different versions of whoever, you know. You have Thor, and then you can have Fat Thor, and then you can have, you know, but to make a standout character that's the trick. And Keith is a standout character with 500 of his own aliases.
I mean, based off what I've learned of him and, you know, how you talk about him, I think that the story in this comic could have really, like, this is like a biography. Like, this really happened to Keith, which I mean, and also is probably how he invented King Shark. And it's honestly so funny to think, like, he probably like saw Suicide Squad and was like, God damn, like so pissed off about that.
Yes.
But
yes. So when you know, maybe his first exposure to the character was on the big screen, like Sylvester Stallone's character, and he might have been like, wait a second, that's my character, you know.
Yeah.
Because whatever book King Shark debuted in, you know, I don't know if Keith was picking that up in 94, you know what I mean?
Like I said, I believe him. I'm not going to argue with him. But Sean, it sounds like you have a pretty interesting story about your interaction with Keith as well, which I wanted to ask again, going off. I mean, you just kind of said a lot of these designs were kind of on the fly, but did you have any conversations with him about, you know, the designs of the altars or anything like that?
I did not meet Keith until way after the book was done. We did a radio spot. Me, Eso, Keith, Josh from Z2 came down as well. So that was kind of my first time meeting him on this radio show, and he was everything you would expect. He was exactly as I pictured. He was popping champagne like immediately. He was like 20 minutes late with his entourage. First thing, okay, let's get that open. Pours that into a solo cup. Puts on the headphones, and he's in it. And then just kind of talking to him. There's so much going on, like in his brain. Like sometimes, like he does go off on these tangents where he's literally in another world, or like creating or seeing another version of reality that's happening. And sometimes when you're just talking to him, you have to like nudge him back into the conversation you were having, because sometimes, as Eso says, he's bringing something else that you were not expecting. So it's kind of a little like white water rafting, a little bit of like, okay, just be ready. And then sometimes it gets a little choppy, but then you can get yourself back to the smooth waters again.
White water rafting. Yeah.
That sounds like a great description of it. And I mean, Sean entering the world of a rock star, of a rap star, that must have been pretty cool as well.
Well, he was pretty excited to meet me too.
I mean, he should be. He absolutely should be.
Yeah, he was very sweet. It was very great to finally meet him, because a lot of my understanding of him has been from like, you know, from your rep or things that exist about you, or watching interviews that you've done. So a lot of, and I was happy that like a lot of what I think landed on the page was close to the mark, or at least close enough to the inspiration on it. Because, you know, Eso script was, I said something to the effect of when we first had our first conversation, I think I said something to the effect of, "This reminds me of something you would write like in junior high." And he was like, "Oh, you're saying like I write like I'm in junior high?" I was like, "No, no, no, like the joy and the passion of this love letter to Keith was something that was very clear on the page, and this was a great roadmap of like, okay, I need to learn what this is, and now I need to learn what this is, and why this works in with this, and do research on all of these references that are on here, because sometimes it's like a direct reference, sometimes it's a reference to a line of a song that you need to go and listen and experience. But you know, Esso's love for Kool Keith was very clear on this page, so it's very hard to do that. It's very hard to capture that feeling that you had when you were 13 or 14 and like really just love something with all of your heart at a time like right before girls enter your life, of like that pure joy of like, this is the last thing I'm ever going to love this deeply before maybe my wife or my life partner. And so that was, I got to a point where, you know, Esso was very open to collaboration. He was very open to notes of like, and any ideas I would have, where it got to the point of like, okay, just whatever you feel like needs to go in here, I'll write around. So it kind of went into like a reverse 90s Marvel style a little bit, where we would kind of touch base and we kind of like went into this whole other thing where editorial came back towards the end and was like, hey, so we're trying to link this up with the letters, but it doesn't quite match. And we're like, yeah, we left the script a long time ago. We just started doing things. I think my only major note was in the original story, it was more the monster story. And Keith was kind of existing in the world and on this journey, but he didn't have like his big hero moment where he, you know, takes back his agency, where he's experiencing, which I thought was really cool, of, you know, he's in this point of his life where he's looking back on his career. So he has this opportunity to actually interact with his creations at a time where he's feeling maybe nostalgic, reflecting on his long career. And then at the same time, the thing that, you know, he created is also the thing that's also going to potentially destroy him. So which I thought there was a lot of like big poetic themes in here that we just need like one little moment where he comes in at the end and goes, okay, everybody, this is my story again, and takes back the ownership of his work, which is something he's always fought hard for, which I thought was a nice reference to, you know, the work that he's done to keep himself independence, where he takes back the control over his art and takes back the command over the things he's created.
Wow, yeah. That was a perfect explanation. That was poetic even. And Esso, sticking a little bit on these different variants, so we touched on, you know, deciding which ones and, you know, talking with Keith on which ones you include, but you also mentioned that that was kind of one of the most challenging and fun parts of it, was giving each one their own kind of moment and making them integral to the story. So again, how did you kind of approach that? You have your kind of list of alters. How did you approach like what moments you wanted to give to which one you wanted to shine more light on as opposed to others?
I think I went by what I gauged as the public's, his fan bases, like who his fan base is viewed at as the most engaging and most popular, you know. So for me, it's always been Kool Keith or Kool Keith Prime, and then every one of his aliases is they have their moments. But like Rhythm X, who was one of his personalities from the Ultramagnetic MCs days, is probably, you know, one that's very near and dear to my heart. However, I didn't know if that character was colorful enough to help tell the story as, say, Black Elvis was, or Dr. Octagon, for instance. I mean, because these characters have real solid core fan bases. You know, there are people that like Black Elvis. That's Black Elvis, and then like the name Kool Keith is kind of like a subtitle to them. And Dr. Octagon, it was a huge record that kind of became bigger than Kool Keith himself. I know Dr. Octagon is technically three people really, but it's Keith. So I think I leaned into the more popular characters to help tell that story, because fans, they want to see Dr. Octagon on the page, and they want to see Black Elvis on the page, and I went that I went that way with it.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And one of my favorites, Doctor Doom, has a hilarious inclusion in this. And I wanted to ask you about Doctor Doom actually, because I mean, he definitely kills people. So why why don't the Keiths have to take him out as well, along with Shark Alligator, or do they just make an exception because they need someone like that on the team?
Well, yeah, everyone needs that rebel renegade madman, and Doctor Doom with 3 O's is the guy, that they needed, and they could rely on to do things that some of the other guys might not have had the recklessness to pull off,
Yeah.
But maybe in the sequel they'll have to kill Doctor Doom. We'll see.
Hey, now that's a story right there. When he has the little bib on and the fork and the knife, I absolutely lost it. That was awesome.
I'm glad you appreciated that, man. Really.
Yeah,
really.
I mean, there was a lot of, which I guess kind of leads into its own question itself for kind of both you guys. There's a lot of Easter eggs, references in this book to Kool Keith and comics in general. I'm thinking just off the top of my head, we have the Wolverine cover homage. We have there's one other one that I'm brain farting on right now. But was that, Sean, was that you adding those in, or Esso, did you kind of add those into the script? Like, oh, I want an homage here, or was that kind of came organically?
Some was in there. A few I added in, but also knowing, who you're working with and the work that you're dealing with. And with Esso and Keith, a lot of their work, it has references to other things, so that in the book should also reference other things, because we're now translating to a visual medium where we could, hit those notes of like, yeah, I remember in particular, really, I think I just threw that in. I don't think he saw until the pages got turned in of the Wolverine Hulk image. But I thought, I was like, yeah, because he's like the Wolverine of this team. He's like the scrappy brawler. I think this was one of the first pieces I had done as part of my pitch stuff. I had just seen these guys as like the big three of like, going from like a superhero translation of like, these are your big 3 guys, and then you have all of your other favorite guys, your Batman, Wonder Woman, Superman, and then these are your most popular, and then you can get like your favorites, like your Booster Gold or your Blue Beetles in there. Yes, it was definitely a very, very collaborative, going back and forth. I think the biggest moment was towards the end of it, where sometimes if Esso has something that it may be too awkward for a text, he'll send me like a very long voice memo to like explain his position of like before the thing he asks you for. Like, I was frantically trying to get the last pages down when he had made the connection, because there's so many moving pieces. He's got his whole music career. This book has been going on for the better part of a year. He made the connection that they had just dropped the Stress Eater LP, and Stress Eater wasn't in the book. So he sent me like a very long, like, hey, I just want to come at you. I don't want to throw this on you. I know you're really busy, but I'm realizing that we have this other Kool Keith variant that we didn't work into the book. Is there any way we can work it in there? And at that moment, I was working on the perfect page where we can kind of do it. That part where Czarface kind of dips a little bit. That was originally like a 3-panel page. I was like, okay, well, what if we have this moment where Czarface is leaving the story, and then we just kind of have him on a little cliffhanger with Stress Eater on this page, and then we can work that in here.
Yeah, it was great. It was you really found a good place to put Stress Eater in there, and I found like it was important to put Stress Eater in, because if Czarface is me, Inspector Deck and 7L, Stress Eater is me, Kool Keith, and 7L. So it's kind of like Stress Eater is a counterpart of Czarface in a sense, but kind of growing the Czarface world. And I just thought the timeline of these things, like when our records will come out and when a graphic novel can get done, sometimes they don't always align, and you don't know exactly how it's going to happen. And then that in the fourth quarter, I said, wow, the Stress Eater album already came out. I had written the script without even thinking about Stress Eater. And then I got on the phone. I left him a romantic voice note. I lowered, and I tried to
Late at
sound
night.
as humble as I could, because I just picture him like just working away, because he's doing a lot of work. It's like
taking the eraser, just like
yeah, and it's like I can only imagine, like for a full-time comics writer, which I am not. The ideas that pop into their head after submitting the script, they must bury artists with so many annoying things. And I could be right, I could be wrong about that, but it's the last thing I'd want to hear when I'm trying to finish up a story, that the writer actually wants to throw on a put this guy in a plaid shirt instead of a t-shirt for God knows why. Just little things like that I can imagine being frustrating. So here I am coming in with a whole new character, and he acquiesced to my my request.
Yeah, it was such the perfect move, because it was like, a lot of times that'll be an email or a text where you're looking at it, and you roll your eyes like, fine. But it's like, no one's ever left me a long voicemail before. It's like, is this like a pocket thing? Did he hit the button and it just started, am I going to hear something I'm not supposed to hear? So then I have to pause for a second and go, okay, and let me hit play. So then I'm just like, so I'm really deeply considering the request, because it's coming from such a different place. Like, okay, yeah, well, obviously, yes, I have to do this.
It's all about how you present it, man. It's all about how you present it. And I love that you guys brought this up, because I was actually going to ask you if I am totally blanking right now. Stress Eater, if that was a Kool Keith variant. So that is another variant of Kool Keith?
Yeah, in a sense, but it's also it's part of a triumvirate, which is with me and Seven else, just from the musical aspect. So if we're growing him as a character in the comics world, I would definitely want his first appearance to be in this graphic novel, because it ties into Keith. It's part of Keith, and we were fortunate enough to get him in there. He had no speaking lines.
And also, I gotta say, everyone go pick up Stress Eater as well, because it is a fantastic album. But I want to ask you guys, before we wrap it up here, Eso, Utah, we kind of touched on this a little bit already, but I want to talk about some Easter eggs, because you said also in the back of your book that one of your favorite parts of writing this was slipping in some Keith lyrics in the dialogue and some visual Easter eggs. So I wanted to ask, obviously we want a lot of them to be discovered by fans themselves, but would you be able to kind of touch on maybe one of your favorites that you added on?
Sure. I'm trying to think, because a lot of them I wrote when I was writing the dialogue. There were some things that were so any Keith fan would get, because out of context, it appears to be. I don't want to minimize it by saying it's nonsensical, but I wanted to put some of his more memorable things, where if he's on a song saying like space voodoo power, ding ding, ba, all these weird things, but they fitting them into the context of an actual conversation that should have some degree of verisimilitude when you're like in that world. If in that particular world, some of them didn't line up. So I think, man, there are several in there, and I'm trying to think of. I don't know, even there's visual ones, like the monkey that's in the story named Binga. That just comes from one of his lines, like train a monkey, show a hummingbird how to act, because the hummingbird's there, the monkey's there, and then there's a horse in the hospital, so you have the horse in the background. I'm trying to think of I don't have the book in front of me, and one of the things that I wanted to do, well, I didn't want to do because it would make it too on the nose, would be to italicize every single one of the lyrics that I kind of interpolated into the book, but I figured that'd be too you'd start groaning after you read them all,
Yeah.
Man, if you gave me a second to think,
Hey,
there's
take
a
all the
lot.
time you need. I would say you take the gun approach, keeping it
Here's one.
secret.
Yeah.
So towards the end of the book, where they're pulling up to the venue for Keith to receive his Lifetime Rhyme Achievement Award and get all of the accolades that he deserves. His earliest partner in all of this hip hop stuff, Said G, was there, and he was on the corner. See that man on the street? See that man on the street? Yeah, he's over there. So see that man on the street? Yeah, he's over there. It's one of their hooks in one of their songs. One of their like, just how could this be a catchy hook, but it becomes a catchy hook? So I put that into the dialogue. You know, see that man on the street? Yeah, he's over there. Or enter your spaceship, or galaxy rays, powerful. I don't know. There's several though. Fans will pick them out. Fans will be able to identify them.
That one was for sure my favorite, the one at the end. And Sean, did you have any good Easter eggs? I mean, I need to go back, but did you slip in a little pedestrian something in there anywhere?
I don't know. I didn't put any pedestrian in there, but there is going to be a little bit of a pedestrian Czarface collaboration coming up.
That was going to be one of my next questions.
There's a little something coming up for New York Comic Con that hasn't been announced yet. But it's going to be a little nugget of something, but it's going to be something that can be signed for New York Comic Con because I'll be set up there. We're trying to get Esso down there. He's working out his schedule. But my favorite little random thing I threw in there is in the part where he's in one of the alternate worlds where he's seeing that this is a different timeline where his influence didn't actually affect the rap world, and like there's this album cover that at the time I was also working on a pitch with the Lawrence brothers. So I thought it'd be really fun to throw the Lawrence brothers in there, taking over the rap world in the early 90s. And no one knew about this until I sprung this on them at San Diego because we had the book there and the deal with Z2 hadn't existed yet. But I was like, I don't know, this, because this was like right before I had started shopping the project with them. So then I brought it to Z2 after this was already done. So I was like, oh, this was just in case I can throw this at them of like needing to like, you know, win an argument or like distract them from something I'd done wrong. Just have a little nugget in my back pocket to throw down. And we sprung this on them the other day where they are already in a book. And we're working on another book with them right now that we're in the last days of the Kickstarter to fund that of the Lawrence Brothers Detective Agency. But yeah, that was one of my plans of like, oh, I know, I'll do this, and then this will become a thing.
That's pretty good. Did any of them have any idea of who Kool Keith was?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
good.
Andy, they all have like a musical background. I mean, even Joey topped on the Billboard charts back in the day with his, Joey had a music career for a long time. He still puts out stuff.
Oh yeah, no, I know that, but that doesn't necessarily mean they know who Kool Keith is. You know what I
mean? No. I was surprised. They were very tapped in, especially Andy. They're all, I didn't know what to expect going into it, but they were all lovely, creative people who kind of get, they get shoehorned into this rap of like, oh, you used to be famous, where it's like they're still here, they're still trying to work, they're still trying to create something that they own, and something in that project reminded me of of Keith's story where most of the stuff that they've put out or have been involved with, or all of the posters or their images on things, they don't own any of that. So now they're working in a creative industry at this point in their lives, and nothing that they've done they have any ownership over, which reminds me of like, what Keith's journey, another avenue that could have taken, where Keith could have just given up everything and everyone else would own the things that he's created. So you have to fight for your ownership and your control over your art, or else it just becomes something that owns you.
Yeah. Talk that shit, Sean. Hell yeah. And I mean, I'm just glad that that's not one of the realities that we had to explore in the Kool Keith book. And before we get out of here, I gotta end it off with Eso. So obviously we talked about how big of a fan of Kool Keith you are and how you wanted to pay homage to such an incredible MC. So, what do you hope that people will take away about Kool Keith from this book, whether they were existing fans of him or have never heard of him in their life? What do you hope that they can take away about Keith from this book?
I think they could just. I would hope that they would find it to be a very entertaining story with a lot of twists and turns and laughs. And if this book is your like jumping on point for Kool Keith, that would be amazing. That would be incredible if a kid happened to pick that book up and started reading it, and then saw that this guy actually has endless amounts of music to listen to, and endless stories and endless anecdotes. I think that would be fantastic. So yeah, I mean, I really wanted to tell the story that would probably come from a mind like his, less autobiographical. I could have, when we first started talking about doing a Kool Keith book, on the table was the idea of telling the story of his rise to fame, from Ultramagnetic MCs right up to Dr. Octagon, to Black Elvis, to Dr. Doom, to Tayshaun Dorset, to and the whole story. But we decided it might be a little bit more colorful and fun to come up with a work of fiction. And here we are.
It's not based on a true story. It's inspired by a true story.
Yeah,
right.
Like I said, I think this stuff actually happened to Keith. I don't doubt it for a second. And I think, I mean, again, you guys just absolutely nailed it. It flows so well together. And so, like, you talk about kind of making it flow almost like a song. You definitely feel that. And I mean, just for both of you guys, again, coming from A Czar Is Born and from The Pedestrian, you really can see that growth in both of your guys' styles and how that just, in my opinion, just came together perfectly. If anyone out there, again, whether you're a Kool Keith fan or not, a Czarface fan or a Pedestrian fan, I think that this book has something in it that everyone can enjoy. And I genuinely think there's no way that you cannot go back and listen to Kool Keith, do your research on it, the way you present him, the way that it's informative as well as fun. Because, I mean, you learn a lot about Keith throughout the book. So, I mean, again, I just cannot tip my hat to both you guys. I loved this book. Everyone, be sure go get it from Z2. You can pick it up today. And before we get out of here, Sean, we just talked very quickly about upcoming project you got, but is there anything else you got coming down the pipeline you want people to be aware of, keep a lookout for?
The Lawrence Brothers Detective Agency. That's going to be a book probably sometime spring of next year. I think they want to have it drop on National Brother Day, which I think is fitting. But that's going to be a similar vibe to Kool Keith, where it's going to be inspired by events where it's going to be the Lawrence brothers, former child stars, find themselves in a situation where other former child stars start to go missing, and they have to go find them, and they put together a detective agency where on the surface it's a wacky premise, but beneath that, it's something with layers where we're going to talk about the absurdity and the difficulties of growing up in Hollywood and what that does to you. And then also, as of this morning, we have been nominated for Best New Series in the Ringo Awards. So any comic pros out there, definitely go down to ringoawards.com if you have room on your ballot this year. We would love to come home with a Ringo at Baltimore this year.
Well, you got my vote already. And I can't believe you guys are going to leave me with the Czarface Pedestrian collab, knowing you can't go more into it, which really hurts me. But Eso, what else do we got coming down the pipeline? More comics, obviously, more Czarface, which, by the way, when you come into LA, man, I gotta come out for a show.
Yeah, that would be a lot of fun, man. 2026, I think. would be the next time we'll be out doing shows, which is a ways, it comes up closer than sooner than you think, but things are being worked out. There's a lot of stuff on the table for shows. We're just trying to make sure everything works with our schedules, inspect the deck schedule. There is new Czarface music on the horizon for 2026. Stress Eater stuff will be cooking as well. Comic books in development. A lot of things like we can't really talk about, but a lot of exciting things. And we're looking forward to seeing folks at New York Comic Con this year. I'm going to try to get over there and say what's up to Sean and check out this Czarface pedestrian battle.
It's very one-sided.
I'm the pedestrian for sure. Oh man, I cannot wait to learn and hear more about that. And we will obviously be talking and covering it all as it goes forward. So be sure that you go follow Sean Von Gorman and Eso on all the socials. I'm sure they're on everything these days. And again, I just can't thank both you guys for taking the time out of your day to come talk to me about this book. Once again, you can get Kool Keith and Enter the Flower Cosmic from Z2 Comics. You can also catch us, the Comic Corner, every Thursday talking about your favorite comic books, as well as follow and subscribe to Agents of Fandom for all of your favorite coverage of news, movies, TV, anything you're watching. We got something for you. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and we will see you all next time.
All right.